Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. Nice to see you all.
Mhm.
I'll start my own recording now. So we looked. I set last week a little bit of an agenda on the sugya of Ein Gimel and Beis Kotzer. The first topic we said we were going to look at was whether Katsira was an Av or a Tolda, and I think we addressed it last week. I really wanted now to move into what I think is the heart of the sugya, which is what exactly is the melacha of Katsira. What exactly is it? Now, I did put the Reb Chaim in stencil, who addresses this subject. I put that as one of the sources, and also in the second source sheet, I gave various Maramakomas, which I hope sort of set one thinking along this path. The truth is, as I said last week, the Reb Chaim source is not essential. It's a very lengthy source, and the other sources that I gave, I hope, just set everyone thinking around these topics, which was my agenda. I'll just explain what this source from Reb Chaim was. Reb Chaim's Torah is known to us by three primary channels. Channel number one is his printed core work, which was Chedushei Rabbeinu Chaim Halevi al Rambam, which was published posthumously based upon, but prepared for being in a safer format by Reb Chaim himself, and that's the most authentic form of transmission of his Torah. Then there is this work that I showed you that was printed, which was a collection of Torah recorded by his Talmidim and put into print. And the third body of Torah that we have is other scattered quotes from his students, either orally or in Sforim, in which his Torah is recorded. So this particular work does not come from the Chaim's primary sefer. It came from notes taken by students over the course of his Shiurim. Now, nonetheless, it opens up an important topic, and as do the sources that I gave. Now, what I'll do is, instead of outlining the two models of understanding Kotzer that were put forward, we'll look at one particular source and we'll try ourselves to understand what Kotzer is. And this is the source printed at the top of the second handout sheet. Does everyone have the sheet that I sent via WhatsApp? Does everyone have that? Yeah. Okay, so in this, the top of that sheet quotes the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos Perik Ches Halacha Daled, and the Rambam says, "Kol zera shekatsirosoi matzmeches oiso magadlosoi kagoin asafso v'silka." Any seed where harvesting it encourages its growth, like grasses and so on, this is the earliest sugya we saw. Hakotzer b'shgaga chayv shtei chatos. If someone harvests it by mistake, they chayv two chatos, and they've done two melachos. Achas mipnei shu kotzer, one because it's kotzer, v'achas mipnei shehu notea, and one because it's planting. So this is the previous topic that we saw, that Zemira is chayiv two, one because of harvesting, because you're getting the wood or you're getting the grass, and the other because of notea, because you're planting you're encouraging growth by pruning or by harvesting it. Okay, that's the previous sugya. But now we get on to a new topic. Gav shushis shall offer a clod of earth, she'olu bra sovim, out of which herbs grew. Higbia me al haaretz v'nicha al gabi yesodos chayv mishum tolish. If you detach it off the ground, so you pick up a whole clod of earth out of which is sprouting grass, you are chayiv because of tolish, because of plucking. And plucking is a type of tolda, or perhaps a fellow of kotzer. Hoysal gabi yesodos v'nicha al haaretz. If you had a clump of earth held up on a structure, on a scaffolding, and you placed it on the ground, chayiv mishum zereya, then one is chayiv for sowing. Number one. Number two, te'enim sheyovshu be'evein, dates which dried on their stalks, v'chein ilon sheyovshu perosobo, and similarly a tree where the fruit dried on the tree, hatolesh mem b'Shabbos chayiv. If someone plucks these fruit on Shabbos, they're chayiv, afapi shehein ka'akurin le'inyan tumah, even though they're already detached with respect to tumah. So, gentlemen, what do you make of this? What do you make of this Rambam? The Rambam says two halachas, three halachas really in the second part. One of which we're not going to talk about, which is about Zoreah. That's not our topic. With reference to Kotzer, he says if you detach you don't pluck grass out of the ground, but you detach a whole clod of earth out of the ground, out of which is sprouting grass. He says you're chayav for toilesh, which is a form of Kotzer. Similarly, he says if you have a clod of earth on the tripod and you put it on the ground, that's rare, we're not going into that. And finally, he says if you have dry fruit grown on a tree, which you pluck from the tree, then you're chayav mishum Kotzer. Anyone managed to see the source and discuss it?
I mean, I think, okay, I'll comment for this feedback. We did look at it fairly briefly before the thing. I mean, I think it's clearly, it doesn't seem so contradicting, other than the previous Rambam referenced things like mitkavein. It was a slightly different term in that he had to be la'akor davar megidulav mitkavein. And this seems slightly different, and that was referencing a product from a tree, whilst this is referencing a whole sort of, not necessarily the underlying product, but even all the grasses. So I think there's a slightly different sort of flavour.
Okay, so what the Rambam seems to be saying is that you're chayiv here from toilesh, even though you're not detaching the fruit from its growing, its source of sustenance. Because the Rambam says if the fruit has dried on the twig, on the branch, you're chayav mishum Kotzer. Similarly, if you uproot grass with the earth in which its roots are found, you're chayav mishum Kotzer. Now, why would you be chayav for Kotzer in these scenarios? Surely you're not detaching it from its growth. If you detach it with... So again, let's just make this in a real scenario. You take a rose bush growing in the... or a plant, a bulb, a tulip growing in the ground, and you detach the tulip with some earth and you put it in a pot and in a garden centre, and then you send this pot to your customers. Says the Rambam, you're chayiv. Why are you chayiv? It's still growing from the pot. So if this was the only Rambam we saw, we might be tempted to say that Kotzer means removing something from its growth, from where it can grow. And the fact is that the tulip in the earth, if it's not just on a clod of earth, but it's fully in earth, maybe it grows better than if it's just on a clod of earth. However, the Rambam then carries on and says, similarly, if you detach fruit from a tree, even though the fruit is completely dried, the twigs are completely dried, and it's no longer drawing any yanika, any sustenance from the tree, nonetheless, you also chayiv there, mishum Kotzer. So the Rambam is teaching us over here a second model of Kotzer. The first way we might have conceived of Kotzer is uprooting something from its yanika, from its yonik means is a borrowed terminology from like a suckling, from where it sucks sustenance. So if we define harvesting, we'd say it's hafsakat yanika, the cessation of harvesting. That would be model number one of Kotzer, and I think that's a very intuitive model of Kotzer, and that's definitely the way I would have thought Kotzer was preceding the Rambam. The Rambam seems to tell us that that's not what Katsira is. Katsira is removing it, oike mimkoma, if you're removing it from its place, that's already Katsira, irrespective of the effect that has on its nika, irrespective it has on its of the effect that has on whether it can still draw sustenance. And therefore, this grass was in the ground, and now it's removed from the ground, it's only in a clump of earth. It's true it still has plenty of yanika, it can grow and continue to grow as a tulip or as an earth, very well from this pot. Nonetheless, it's been removed from its yanika, and that's enough to make it chayav on Shabbos, the melachot of Kotzer. Similarly, with the dried fruits which have ceased drawing any yanika, any sustenance from the tree, nonetheless, on chayav mishum Kotzer. To put this differently into Adam's language, in the previous Rambam we saw that la'akor davar megedolah miskavin. That the melacha, the definition of the melacha was, if you are being oike davar megedolah, if you're removing it from its growth. Now that could have meant if you're removing it from being able to grow. That's removing it from where it can draw growth. However, the Rambam here is now teaching us that that's not what he meant by this term. What he meant by the term is, if you're removing it from the place of its growth, even if it wasn't anymore drawing sustenance from that. So I think this is an important Rambam in understanding what Katsira is. Is Katsira removing something from growing? Previously it was growing, and now I've killed it. I've taken it away from its sustenance. Is that the melachot? That's what I would have thought Kotzer was. And the Rambam is telling us that, in his understanding at least, that's not what Kotzer is. It's removing it. It's akiras davar mimokim chaburah. It's detaching it as opposed to removing it from its katsira.
Well, whether or not it is yonek, because in the case of the grass on the clod, it is still yonek. So that idea of removing it from its place, it applies whether there is yanika or not.
That is correct. Yes, that's exactly your Chaim's point in this Rambam. Yeah.
So how would we reconcile that with plucking a grape off its bunch, which has been cut already?
To say that is Katsira or not Kotzer?
That should be Katsira.
No, because this wasn't its. That's not detaching it from its place. It's part of a bunch which was growing from a tree, which I've now detached already from its place. It's not detaching it from the location that it was attached, the part of the world to which it was joined previously.
Why not?
Doesn't the Rambam use the word tolesh for the last two, those dinim at the end? It doesn't use the word kotzer.
Yeah. The truth is, I could have spoken about this earlier, but didn't, maybe wrongly. The Gemara also introduces to us the word tolesh, right? The Gemara in the continuation, when it talks about shoda pisa omra papa haimad shodi pisa ledikla, but also tamachai shtaim achas mishum tolesh achas mishum mefarik. So the Gemara already introduces the word tolesh, and tolesh is either a tolda or a ko'av with kotzer. So effectively, it's a form of. It would seem this is a form of kotzer. The relationship between tolda and kotzer is one that we still need to look at. The exact nature of the relationship.
But if you were to say that tolesh here is Rambam was thinking of it as a tolada, then maybe removing something from its location is only a tolada as opposed to the main kotzer.
You're saying maybe this is the difference between tolesh and kotzer itself.
Yeah.
It's possible, but it's difficult to understand, because if the essence of the melacha is removing something from its ability to grow, from the unika, the sustenance it draws, then it's difficult to hear that tolesh would just be detaching something from its chibur, from its that which it's drawing to, which is a sort of more physical action rather than biological in terms of detaching it from where it's growing. So it's difficult to hear that's a tolda, but not impossible. It's a fair point.
Does this not mean it's not an example where we see that Rambam seems to be Maisa driven rather than the engagement with the activity driven? The detachment of something sounds a lot more kind of like a binary action of has it been done or has it not been done, as opposed to what we might have thought, which was, gaining produce from a tree or something like that, or gaining fruit, or, harvesting some kind of useful item.
I don't think that's true, though maybe the way I phrased it led to that link. You can talk about the action in both models, and you can talk about the result in both models. The action, the problem here is, what do we mean by harvesting? We know that harvesting is a stage in the process of the 11-stage process of producing bread in the classic scenario, and then is then extended to all removal of growing things from the ground, from the tree, from the thing on which they grow. Mokum Geduloi. The question is, what's the result that's significant over here? Is the result that it's no longer attached, but it's now detached? Or is the result, physically so, or is the result that it's no longer yonik, it's no longer growing from the source of its growth? And that's the confusion over here in Melachos Kotzer, that we perhaps blurred in our minds until Chaim opened our eyes and told us that we weren't doing enough careful thought, and that we need to look at the sources and think which one it is. This is a classic Chaim, it's a chakira. It's a blurry concept that he focuses us on and points out to us that we have two intuitions as to what it means, and we haven't noticed the difference. It could be just removing something from attached, or it could be removing something from growing. Now, I'll stop here, and we're going to see further sources shortly, many of which are printed on the on the source sheet that I gave out. But I just want to say that to contextualize this isn't the only place in Shas, in the halachic system, where it's important for us to know whether something is considered attached or detached. So, for example, in Hilchos Tumah, and the Rambam already alludes to this, there is only a fruit, which is a fruit and no longer part of a tree, can become tummy. So the Gemara there discusses at what point is it considered a fruit and no longer part of the tree. And the simple answer is, when it's a fruit detached from the tree, sitting in my fruit bowl, then it's a fruit. When it's still growing on the tree, it's not a fruit. However, the Gemara says that if it is already no longer growing from the fruit because the twig has completely shriveled up and dried, and therefore the fruit is detached from the tree in the sense of no longer growing from the tree, even though it's still physically attached, this is already considered a tolush fruit, a detached fruit. And this is the final words of the Rambam in this halacha, in which the Rambam adds in, and he says, that even though hein ka'akurin, they're considered detached l'inyan tumah, nonetheless, with respect to Shabbos, they're considered attached, and therefore I'm achieving something by detaching them from the tree. So even though with respect to tumah, perhaps the rubric, the essential determinant of whether it's considered attached or detached is whether it's growing from the tree or not. With respect to Shabbos, it's whether it's physically attached or not. And again, this brings out the point in the Rambam that the stage in the melachot process of preparing food is that you can only eat something, or you can only get something in a usable, normal way of eating it if you detach it from its place of growth. It's not about just detaching it from drawing the growth from the ground. And according to the Rambam, that's the better way of understanding the melacha. The point of the melacha in preparing bread isn't whether it's still drawing sustenance from the ground. The point is the next stage of making bread is I need to take out the grains and so on. And therefore it's a sort of mechanical stage of preparing it, much like threshing is a mechanical stage of preparing it. I need to break open the husks. This isn't about the life force within it. It's about the detaching of it in order to get it in a usable form. And therefore the Rambam says this is the melacha. So this is one example. Sorry.
I know it's an aside, but I was just trying to ask a question on the tumah. Even though it's detached, how could it be viewed as? I thought it could only be makabel tumah if it was actually a machshir. So how can something which is dry anyway, even if it's on a tree, be? What's the practical difference in terms of receiving tumah? How would it work?
Well, this is itself the question. If it becomes huchshel kabel tumah, if it gets, I don't want to go too much into the detail of hechshel kabel tumah, just so those who aren't in the sugyas, but you're correct. If it gets huchshel kabel tumah on the tree, once it is no longer drawing yanika from the tree, then it would be able to be makabel tumah. Whereas if it's just a fruit growing on the tree, it's part of a tree, and therefore it's mechuber karka, and it can't receive tumah. So this is one sugya where we talk about what's considered tolush mechuber. There's many other examples where this is important. There is a halacha which I'm not going to go into now, that the method through which you do kinyonim is different whether you are koiner metaltalin, detached objects, movable objects, or land karka, which is not detachable, not detached. It's just part of the land. And again, this is an important sugya. There's a halacha that you ein nishpoin al karkos. You don't make a shavua on karka. You only make a shavua on metaltalin. And again, with respect to both of these halachas, dinei mominus halachas, the Gemara discusses what defines whether it is mechuba and whether it is metaltalin. What defines whether it's attached to the ground and part of the ground, and what defines whether it is not part of the ground. And again, these behave with a very different formula to Hilchos Shabbos. And I just again want to explain the logic of why they should behave with a different formula to Shabbos. The Gemara considers, one way of bringing this out is the Gemara considers the sad that ha'oimed litolesh katolosh domi. Fruit which is ready, oimed, omed, is standing, is prepared to be harvested, is katolosh domi, is like it is already harvested with respect to the laws of dinei mominus. So if I sell you my land, the presumption is that includes all the trees on the land, but may not include fruit which is already, which I'm about to pick. Similarly, it may be fruit that I'm about to pick, I need to do the different kinyan on, or I do need to make a shavua on, unlike karka, land which doesn't need the shvura. Why? Because the Gemara considers the possibility that oimed l'tolish k'tolish nomi. If it's ready to be picked, it's already tolish. Now, with respect to Shabbos, every time I pick a fruit, if we would use this formula, how am I ever chayiv? Because every time I pick a fruit, it's because, or almost every time, it's because it's ready to be picked. If it's ready to be picked, if we say k'tolish nomi, it's as if we consider it as if it's already picked. Then how can I ever be chayiv for Shabbos? For Ketzira, it's always ready to be picked, and therefore the Gemara says it's as if it's picked. And the answer to the question is, don't be ridiculous. That when the Gemara says k'tolish nomi, it's as if it's ready to be picked, is therefore like it's picked. It doesn't mean some magical formula that it is picked that would make my farming life much easier. But of course it's not picked. The answer is, since it's ready to be picked, it's no longer, in momentous terms, in monetary matters, part of the land. Because it's already now the produce of the land as opposed to the land itself. But with respect to Hilchos Shabbos, of course, it's the picking, which is the melacha, that moves it on to the next stage. So it's very important, and this is the second point that really Reb Chaim and the others that talk about this make. There's quite a lot of clear-headed thinking as to what are we talking about. We can't translate across from sugya to sugya to sugya as to how we define these terms. And there's so many countless other sugyas that talk about whether something is defined as tolosh or mechuba, attached or detached from the ground, that are not automatically relevant to Hilchos Shabbos. I'll give one other final example, which is the laws of Avodah Zarah. The halacha is that an object can be made in Avodah Zarah and forbidden to use if someone worships it, but the land or the world itself cannot. So someone cannot make a mountain into an Avodah Zarah by declaring it an Avodah Zarah, whereas something that's not mechuba to karka can. And again, there's the discussion as to how we define tolosh and mechuba with respect to that. And again, this is not identical to the halachas of Shabbos. So we need to look at each case by itself. So the first Maramakum in our journey to try and understand what's the definition of Kotzer with respect to Shabbos is the Reb Chaim, who points out in the Rambam that the Rambam seems to say it's the detaching from the grounds that's the melacha, as opposed to detaching a grape from the bunch of grapes as raised by Jeffrey. It's detaching from the grounds or the place where it initially grew, that's the melacha, but it's not the cessation of growth, which is the melacha. That's not the point with Hilchos Shabbos, and it's very intuitive because it's the processing of the food that matters that we're talking about over here. I just want to mention a few other Mara Makomas though to show that this isn't so simple. In case we thought it would. Perhaps the first source that we can mention is this very halacha of the Rambam, and there's a Gemara. Maybe we'll have a look at the source sheet that I gave out, and we'll have a look at the Gemara. The Gemara is the second source that I printed on the source sheet. It's Gemara in the Daf Pei Aleph Amud Beis in Shabbos. This is really the source of the Rambam. Hayomunach al gabi karka v'hinich al gabi yisedus. A clod of earth which was on the ground, and I lifted it up and I put it onto scaffolding. Chayiv mishum tolesh. You're chayiv because of tolesh. So this is the explicit Rambam. Lifting up a clod of earth from the ground is chayiv because of tolesh. So far, so good. It's not just the Rambam, therefore, that says that. It's not the cessation of the unika, of the growth that matters, but it's removal from the place that matters. It's no longer mechuba. It's a Gemara. And the Rambam's just quoting the Gemara. What could be simpler? However, we have a look at Rashi. And Rashi says, Chayev mishum toleish. It no longer grows from the reach of the karka, from the holistic environment of the karka. Then he says, V'ni nira tahai chiyav lav dafka. Very rare Rashi to do. Rashi says, I don't believe that this chayev in the Gemara is dafka. I don't believe you really are chayev on this. Ela also mishum dedomi latolesh. It's an issa drabanon because it's dom latolesh. And then Rashi proves that it can't mean that you're chayev mamish. You're literally chayev for doing this. This can't be malach of tolesh. We saw this Gemara briefly, and I don't want to go into all the details. But the Gemara there says that if one's in an emergency situation in which one's out in the field using toilet facilities and one is unable to wipe oneself, one can use a clod of earth, and this is mutter because of kavod abrius, even in such a situation. And Rashi says it can't be that we would be allowing a clump of earth to be used in a situation where this was the deraisa of Kotzer. It must be just an issa drabonim. How does Rashi translate the phrase chayav? We don't know. He says it's lav dafka. Tosfos quotes Rashi a little bit differently to how we have Rashi. Let's just have a quick look at the first line of Tosfos. V'nichal gabi yisodos, mechayav mishum todesh, hai mechayav makas madus midrabanon k'tepirish b'kuntras. Tosfos quotes Rashi as saying that the chayav means makas madus midrabanon. If one transgresses a rabbinical issa, on certain occasions there's rabbinical makas, and the chayav here doesn't mean a chayav min haTorah of the melachot of Kotzer, it means a chayav of makas madus, of rabbinical penalty for transgressing an issa drabanon. So here we have a very rare thing. In general, the Gemara speaks with great precision, and Rashi is very careful to be medayik in the language of the Gemara. But here Rashi says it's impossible. It can't mean that one is chayav. It must mean that one is only transgressing an issa drabanon. Bottom line, we have a machlokas, Rambam on one side, and Rashi and Tosfos on the other side. Why Rashi and Tosfos are on the Gemara like that? Because of the technicalities of the sugya. Tosfos brings another Gemara somewhere else in Shas that implies the same thing. He brings the Gemara of fruit which dry on the tree, and he learns out from that if the fruit is completely dry, you will not be chayav for the melacha. And therefore we have two schools of thought. The Rambam says if you remove a clod of earth from the ground, if you pluck a fruit from a tree when it's dry, you are still chayav. And Rashi and Tosfos say if you remove a clod of earth from the ground, or you pluck a fruit from a tree when it's completely dry, you are potter. Seemingly they are arguing over this very machlokas that we've just spoken about. Rashi and Tosfos hold that the melachot of Kotzer is removing something from its place of giddel, from the place in which it grows. Whereas the Rambam holds that the melachot of Kotzer is detaching something, the mechanical act of detaching it from being mechubar, from being attached to the ground, and that's part of the processing of preparing things for making them into usable food, and that's the melacha of Kotzer. So this is an enormously important machlokas as to how we understand the deraisa of Kotzer. And Rashi holds that if something is completely dry, or if it's lifting up a whole clod of earth, it's not deraisa, it's a drabonim, because it looks like todesh, a very sensible drabonim, but not chiyuv deraisa of todesh. I'll just reference for next year, when I hope we'll continue this topic and finish it off. If you're behind in the sources, don't worry too much about the Gemara and the Rashi Tosfos I've just shown you. Just have a look at the Rambam in the first source, really important Rambam. Have a look at the Gemara. There's 2 lines of Gemara in Rashi. Leave Tosfos because it's rather technical. Leave the next Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Nun, which I reference because it's also technical, and go down to the Shulchan Aruch at the bottom of the page, in which the Shulchan Aruch talks about fishing, and there's a very, very surprising Mogen Avram and Rashal. Rashal stands for Rav Shlomo Luria. We know him more commonly as the Maharshal, and who quotes from Yerushalmi about fishing and the link between fishing and Kotzer, a very interesting and difficult Maramokum. And then, please God, in the next year, which will be on Sunday, we'll finish off, we'll run through several more sources in Shas that give us an indication about what Kotzer is. This is not going to be resolved, meaning this is going to end up on Machlokas Rishonim. There isn't a way of bringing the two sides together, but we'll just try and marshal the evidence for each side for these two very different conceptual models of what Kotzer is. And we see there's quite literally enough Gemara, Halacha and Louise. We've already seen one whether plucking a dry fruit is deraisa or drabanon. And that has practical ramifications. Can I do Amir al-Akum on that? Can I do so in a state of emergency, where there's Kovet Abrius, as per the Gemara, and other such considerations? So that's where we'll, please God, take this discussion next time we learn together on Sunday. I hope Sunday we will probably only just finish this topic, but there's a much bigger sugya coming up, which is the memory of Rav Papa, about Haimanda Shoda Pisa de Dikla, etc. I've misquoted that, but Haimanda Shoda Pisa le Dikla. And there's a Tosfos on that, which talks about from a different angle about what Todesh is, what Mefarik is, and what Cholev is, and we're going to spend quite a lot of time on that. So just the Maram Komas are set on this sugya, not that much, but please spend a significant amount of time on Rav Papa and the Tosfos on that, about what Mefarik is and what Cholev is, because these again are really massively important Halacha and Ma'aseh questions.
Rabbizobin, there's not a Shiur on Tuesday.
Sorry, slip of the tongue. Sorry, Tuesday there will be a Shiur. Apologies. Tuesday there will be.
So I think it's 9:30 on Tuesday, and then people learn as usual from 8 till 9:30.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Sorry, apologies. Yeah. Okay. If any no other questions on this, we'll stop.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I wish you all a good day.
Good day, everyone.